Hi guys, welcome to Mentorship Monday. Oh my gosh, I forgot to put my lights on. Oh, there we go. It's a bit bright. I actually think I'll switch them off. Um, Welcome to Mentorship Monday. Super excited to have you guys on. I'm going to give it a few minutes, and I see there's a couple of people already jump on. Kai say hi to you. Yako, nice to see you again. Live with Lika. Nice to see you live with Lika. I can see that our guest has joined. I'm so excited that Dr. Egemba is here. I'm going to see if I can just invite him or get him to send me a request. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. It is a crazy Monday, so things are just Mondays are always tough days for me. Like so much that I want to get done. Hello, how are
I'm
you?
great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so very much, Dr. Gamble, for making the time
Thank you.
to just connect with us. And I'm looking forward to a really engaging session. I've got 3 sheets of questions that
Okay.
have been sent through, sent through, and I know we're not going to be able to get through to all of them, but I know for sure that you're going to help us get through some of them. Before we get started, I know, I mean, we've been following your work here in South Africa, in particular, your work around being an advocate for global healthcare. We love your content, how you make complex things really accessible, and how you bring your own creativity and humor. But professionally, if somebody was reading your LinkedIn billboard, what would it say? How would you describe yourself in like 2 or 3 sentences?
So I think I finally described myself in one sentence. We looked at everything I had done and everything I had planned everything I am planning to do. And the simple thing is, I am simply a doctor who tells stories. And that's
Mm.
basically it. And that's because I realized that storytelling is one of the most powerful forces of human nature. We have evolved through so many times and centuries and cultures and civilizations, and everything almost boils down to one thing: storytelling. We've told stories in different forms and formats. I mean, we have people who are archaeologists still digging up stories that have been told since years past. And I realize that storytelling is actually one of the greatest forces of humankind. And so I'm using that to change the perception of people when it has to do with healthcare. So, who is Aproko doctor? Who is Chinonso Egemba? Very simple. It's a doctor who tells stories.
So I absolutely love that. A doctor who tells stories. So when we think about stories, and I'm a huge fan of storytelling as a mechanism of connecting, of having conversation. And one of the things we sometimes think is that there's certain spaces where storytelling is inappropriate. And
Yeah.
if one thinks about healthcare for one, you definitely think that that is a very clinical environment. It's not the place where we go for connection and storytelling. Where did you get the courage to say, no, actually, I'm actually going to start telling this stories in this very environment that everybody might think is not the right place?
Thank you so much for that question because it was, I think it was more of a pivotal point in my career. I always did not start off as a Aproko doctor. However, I started with a burning need, and the burning need was to educate people about their healthcare. And so we started the usual way everyone starts. We started with talking about do's and don'ts and requirements, um, basically all that. And I was sounding like organizations. I was sounding like the traditional doctor that people grew up to believe in.
Yeah.
But what I realized was that I wasn't making any headway. I had been doing this for close to 3 years without getting any headway, so to speak, until something happened in the hospital I was working one day. And it was so impactful, generally, even to me as a person, that I decided to talk about it. Of course, protecting the identity of, both the hospital I was working in and the identity of the patients. And when I did that, it went viral. And that's when it occurred to me. People do love stories because before then I had been diligently educating people, but it seemed like nobody was paying attention up until this very moment where I shared the story.
Mm.
It was about, a woman who had given birth right around, in the staircase of the hospital I was working in. And it seemed so impactful that a lot of people actually started sharing their own opinion. So I told a story that inspired people to start sharing their own stories. And that was when I realized that we do tell stories. As a matter of fact, from the beginning of this live session, we have been doing something, and that's storytelling. The problem is we assume that for a story to be told, it has to be true. Many times stories are fictional, but story even the African culture, so to speak, we have um certain lessons that are shared via folk tales. It also shows that we are very strong believing, we believe strongly in
Yeah.
stories. And almost every Nigerian that grew up within our time will tell you about the tortoise and the hare. And now storytelling has moved from sitting around campfires to actually being on social media. So we now tell stories on social media. Every time someone is swiping up or down, they're looking for a story, whether you like it or not, because that's
Mm.
the simple way we connect with other humans. And so we're looking for stories that are either similar to ours or stories that are completely different from ours to help us connect to a different tribe or different people. And that was a massive well of possibilities that I was missing out on if I stuck to the traditional way. Another thing that also helped me was that I think of myself as creative, basically. I think of myself as someone who's creative. What that simply means is that I did not feel comfortable being put into certain train of thoughts because in medical school you're not really allowed to be creative, especially when you're studying.
Yeah.
There's certain regimens. You have to follow certain set regiments. And so what happens in medical school most of the time is that you have to rely on your ability to recall information and not generate new ones. Meanwhile, creativity allows you to use the information you already have to create new information.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time reading and putting this information in our mind so that we're able to recollect it to make
Yeah.
sense of what is in front of us. And I knew that being able to communicate with the public, you have to speak to them in their language, which is storytelling.
Yeah.
So, but
I
initially it wasn't easy.
yeah.
And the reason it wasn't easy was because a lot of people fought back, and most of the people who fought back were actually from the medical community.
So that's
Yeah,
interesting. I want to pause there for a second because I think you've said some really insightful things. I think one of those is how stories give us the opportunity to see ourselves in other people's stories. So when we listen to other people's stories, we can see ourselves. And so even as you make the point to say, stories do not always have to be true, and that's
yeah,
absolutely fine. But what they do is they give us a sense, a frame in somebody else's world, and somebody can say, oh, I can see myself that, they can see
exactly.
themselves as the characters in your story. And I think that's really, really powerful. The other thing that you've shared is, and I 100% agree with you, Aproko, that we are a culture, and I'm sitting here in Johannesburg, and I know there are people from different parts of the continent, but I think one thing we can definitely say with conviction as Africans is that we are a storytelling people.
I agree.
And this is how we connect. This is how we pass on our legacies, our identities. And I think that's really powerful. But I just want to tap into some of the tea and a little bit of the shade from the medical community. What is it about the medical community that you think was being threatened by the way in which you were introducing and using stories in this particular sector?
So let me first state that I don't want to speak on behalf of other doctors
Sure.
or other people in the medical community, but healthcare is evolving. And before now, while I was growing up, doctors primarily were seen as gods in their societies. I don't know if it's the same thing in South Africa, you know.
100%.
Exactly. Growing up, doctors were seen as, the echelon of healthcare. If the doctor had told you something, you take his word to the bank and that's it. However, healthcare is evolving in such a way where human beings are becoming more involved in their healthcare. And we need to evolve with that. Before then, we really didn't care about the patient's choice. It was later in medical school that we, began to be taught things like treat the patient, not the condition.
Right.
Before then, the doctor says this, and you go ahead and do it without any question. Either you do that or you die. But right now, we're giving patients options, and they are to choose. And all we are meant to do is to basically just tell them which option we believe is best for them. But at the best of it, they decide. Another way that healthcare is evolving is, when I said healthcare is now in the hands of the patients rather than the hands of the doctors, is that patients feel like they have a role to play. Almost as if when you look around, everyone has a smartwatch.
Right.
Smartwatches are basically things that help us keep track of our own healthcare. So that helps you understand just how much healthcare is evolving. Storytelling and empowering people with information via that almost gave, not almost, but gave a lot of people in society certain agencies about their own health. So they felt empowered to be able to make decisions for themselves, which is also a very important, um, something I was trying to do, right? Number one. Number two was that in telling the stories, I did not sound like the traditional doctor. The traditional doctor is prim, is proper, is put together. It sounds like I do right now,
This
but
is what the comments are saying. People are saying, what is this new accent?
so, it sounds prim, it sounds proper, just like Christopher of Charity is saying,
Yeah.
Aproko doctor, we don't understand this, your accent is, but when I'm telling the stories, I sound like a mechanic, because those are the people on the streets. Those are the people that sound like I do. I
Yeah.
cannot connect with you if I don't speak your language. And it doesn't have to be English, Swahili, doesn't have to be any of those languages. It could just be a certain way you say certain things. It could be a
Yeah.
certain swag. It could be a certain, so understanding how a certain person relates and how to speak like that can also help. So, why exactly? It was probably because it was unconventional. And I know that human beings, irrespective of their level of education, are threatened by things that are not familiar. And so that was not familiar. That in itself
Mm.
wasn't.
And I want to say thank you for, I'm seeing a lot of people, as you're saying, that, commenting about, who is this person? But I think that it shows the genius of what you do and how much attention you pay to intentionally connecting with people in a way that they will understand you. And in the same way that you're intentionally connecting with me so that
Yeah.
I can understand and have a conversation with you. So I do appreciate that. So I've got a couple of questions here that have come from people from all over. So
Oh,
I
that's
want
a
to
lot
maybe
of
just put the,
questions.
yeah, lots of questions. Let's see what we can do. So there's a question from Lucia,
Okay.
and Lucia is saying, your content always brings a smile to my face. How do you decide which topics to cover on social media? And how do you ensure that your messaging is always inclusive and culturally sensitive?
So I'm going to answer it this way. Lucia, I want you to stay tuned because there is another kind of content coming out that doesn't necessarily make people smile. It just it makes you more emotionally involved intensely in what is being shared. And it's still going to be storytelling. I'm going to say that. It's still going to be storytelling. So Emeka Nkechi, basically, what I'm trying to say is there's a new kind of content that's coming out, and I won't be smiling all the time. I won't be making jokes. It's going to be emotionally intense. Some people are going to cry from watching these videos, basically. Now, that is also because we cannot use humor. Humor is a very powerful emotion. And like I said, we live in Africa. It's almost as if everywhere an African turns is, faced with problems on every side. That's why some of the most popular content on social media has one form of humor or the other. And that's because people are generally looking for escapes
Yeah.
from the dire environment around them. However, there are certain conversations that cannot be had with humor. There are certain things that cannot be humorous. An example is cancer.
Yeah.
But you still need to raise awareness about it. And if you go via your normal route, no matter how loyal it seems like the audience is to you, if it does not excite that emotion, videos like that do not generally do well. So we had to channel another route of storytelling, and it's coming out in a few weeks. Please stay tuned. Yeah, so that's that. So how do we decide what to tell or what stories to tell? There's a lot of research that goes into it. We have to look at, are we also crossing the line between humor and insensitivity?
Right.
That's another thing that we look out for. If it crosses the line into being insensitive, we generally don't talk about it using that manner. We use another manner instead, which is basically this new channel of information that we're trying to use, because we have to tell the stories one way or the other. It's just the form in which it's being told. But thank you, Lucia, for that. All I'd say is stay tuned. In a couple of weeks, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
It'll be out.
I absolutely love that, and we did get the scoop first, so we will be looking out for it. But I love the attention that's paid to sensitivity of the topic at hand, and being in this particular field means that many of the things are going to be sensitive. But I think that's what makes the ability to tell your story so much more powerful and so empowering, right? Because when you are struggling with a physical condition, to be able to own that with your own story is just so super powerful. So let me come up from Dr. Hani, who I think is a dermatologist, is asking, have you always been posting fun and creative content? Can you tell us a little bit about how did you really get started?
Okay, so it wasn't always funny. I started in 2015, and one of the skills I had at that point was graphic designing. And I started to create small posters here and there, reminding people to do certain things or get protected while having sex with a new partner. Things like, the exact amount of water you should drink, tests to have, check up to, do and stuff like that. But I realized, just like I said earlier, it wasn't really gaining it. It wasn't gaining attention up until I stumbled across storytelling. But I was always in that, and I was willing to experiment. So I believe that one of the important things to do is to experiment as much as you can with your audience, and you basically see which one clicks.
Yeah.
If people are not trying to, and you have that leeway in the early days to experiment. I believe strongly that creativity is all about experimenting. The more you experiment, the better you're going to get at really communicating with your audience. And Mecca and Nkechi came out of experimentation. You're not necessarily new people, Before then, we're not using Emeka and Nkechi. It was one day we used the video, people loved it, and we continue to use it. And along the line, we're still experimenting with new forms of content. We're looking at the feedback. Can we do it better? Can we say this in a different way? Sometimes there are certain videos that we've said before, but we just channel it in a new way and compare the interactions between both videos and see which one works better. This also gives us an idea into how people really think.
Yeah.
And sometimes even gives us an idea into whether their thought processes have changed. For example, the video that was released today about groundnuts and what
I've lost your audio, Aproko. Yeah, no, I can't hear you. I'm lip reading now. Yeah, we're still struggling a little bit. So let's see how we can get the audio back. In the meantime, we are just maybe let me just catch
Yeah.
everybody up
Can
and
you
just. Oh, we're back. We can hear you now.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, so experimentation, that try new things with your audience. Okay, yes. So I was saying something. I said the video that we released today was released some months ago. It's the same video, not necessarily the same video, but the same topic just spoken about differently. And what we noticed is that a lot of people were actually now aware than how they were in the beginning. So it's given us an insight into how literate about their heads people are becoming. So that's a plus on my part. So experiment a lot, try out new fun content. But I believe that what actually works now, based on our experimentation, is people want to see rather than tell them. So show rather than tell. And that's
Yeah.
the channel in which we're going. So show, don't tell. If you have the opportunity to show me what it is, please do so. However, there is now the boundaries of patient confidentiality. Who do we use exactly? And some of these images also occur in textbooks. And as long as they're in textbooks or public images, I feel that those can be
Yeah.
used because we need to educate the public properly.
So I feel like you've already begun to answer one of the next questions, and it comes from Soga Prince. And Soga Prince is saying, I struggle with brainstorming fresh content ideas for my social media platforms. How do you keep being so innovative and engaging? And do you have some tips for us about how to overcome creative blocks?
So I would say that one of the books you should read is Still Like an Artist. And one of the reasons that book resonated with me was at some point I was having creative blocks here and there until I realized that the problem was I was really trying so hard to come up with fresh ideas every time. But you don't really need to. At the same time, you don't need to copy ideas because when you
Yeah,
copy ideas, you're insulting the intelligence and the creativity of both the person you're copying from and yourself. However, people have left templates here and there. For
yeah,
example, you look at certain cars. I would use Mercedes cars for an example. If you look at the front fascia of a Mercedes car, it can remind you of a certain animal. Some people say it reminds you of a tiger, and other people say it reminds you of a lion. You realize that some of this creative um, some of this creative what's it called? Yeah, some of what we see in society today were actually influenced by things we've already seen. If you've
right,
watched the movie Dune, you realize that the planes in Dune had a certain feel around them. Those planes were certain, probably inspired by hornets, the way hornets fly. So
right,
if you look really deeply, people are stealing from each other. You just have to steal it and make it
right,
yours. So sometimes I might be scrolling on social media and I come across a certain content that I realize, interesting. Now, how do I make it more African?
right.
How do I make it more Nigerian? How do I connect it with the people around me? That's way you're able to really have a constant flow of fresh ideas. So still like an artist, get an idea from someone else, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be health. You could be watching a movie, and something happens in a movie that sparks up an idea in your head, and you realize, oh, I really can make this mine. I really can make this yours, rather than sitting and having to bring up a concept from the very get-go till the end. It's going to be difficult. It's going to lead to burnout. You're not going to be effective.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people are resonating with the phrase "steal like an artist."
Yeah.
A few people have asked you to repeat the name of the book.
So the name
So
of
we'll definitely,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. So the name of the book is Still Like an Artist, and the writer is Austin Kleon.
Austin Keon. But
Yeah,
one of the things that I think is so interesting about what you're saying, Dr. Kembe, is, if you read Jim Collins, he talks about this idea of your personal artistry. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, where you're saying, be inspired by greatness and excellence around you, but
yeah,
keep coming back and translating that into your own personal artistry. In fact, I would say contextual artistry. How do I make this African? How do I make this South African? How do I make it Nigerian? How do I make it more of a reflection of my own community? So thank you very much for sharing some of that. I'm going to try and squeeze in a few more questions. We've got a question from Nelly. And Nelly is saying, Dr. Egemba, your content is not only informative, but it's really visually appealing as well. Can you share your process for how you create eye-catching videos or graphics that help you to better tell the story?
Initially, this video wasn't always as appealing as this, and I'm sure if you really go to the beginning of my page, you can tell. We've released thousands of videos, I think, so far, I dare say. And one thing you would notice is that the the later videos are better than the former videos, especially visually appealing. And that's because I believe in the principle of 1% improvement every day. I'm always challenging my team to always do better than the last time. Always try to outdo the last video you've done. It could be something as simple as improving the voice texture. It could be something as changing a lens. I just believe in 1% improvement every day. One thing about my team is that I'm always sharing new information with them. As soon as I come across it, if I think, oh, it's going to make this person a better videographer, I share it with them. Oh, I think this is going to improve the writing process of this person, I share it with another person, right? And that's one. Number two, the process is we do a lot of research. And research can come in different forms. One of the research that we do is listening. We listen to people. And when I say listening, is we go through comment sections of even posts that are not ours, and we look for the temperature. We try to feel the temperature. So, what are people saying about certain things? It could be it's a conversation about someone who died of cancer. The comment section will give you an idea of what the prevailing mindset is. Do people still believe it's a problem? Or are people educated enough to know that there are ways that it can be prevented? These are just some of the ways that you can tell. And once this happens, you're able to now, okay, this is the prevailing mindset. How exactly do we counter it? Once you find that out, the next question is, how do we tell it? Like I said, do we use humor? Do we use pain? Do we use sadness? Before there are even some of my videos where I was acting like a herbalist, like a Nigerian herbalist. We have different names for them. They're either babalawos or DBS. So they have markings on their faces. They're like village chiefs, right?
Yeah.
And the reason we use that particular character, we call him Dibia. Okay, we call him Dibia. One of the reasons we use that character is before now, people don't question them. So if a Dibia tells you bring 7 goats and 5 cows to reverse a certain curse in your family, you were definitely going to do that if you believed in him. But we realized that it wasn't really, initially it was good, but over time it lost popularity. And we listened and we found that people don't really believe in those people anymore. And so trying to use that character was no longer effective. And so we kind of like slowly phased them out. Like I said, you have to constantly always learn.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to switch as information changes. Because I believe that if we had stuck to that person and believed that, oh, this formula works for us and it's going to continue working, we would have lost a huge chunk of our population, a huge chunk of our community, a huge chunk of our audience, simply because we refuse to evolve with the times. So always listen, and gear matters, but I don't think gear is the most important thing. I think that most smartphones today are equipped with groundbreaking technology that can actually, make your videos visually appealing. But I think that what's most important is not just being visually appealing, but being able to connect with them. If you don't connect on that level,
yeah. And there's as you talk about connection and you talk about the different characters, again, I'm just taken aback by the level of intent that is put to thinking about, how do I create a character that is normalized in your community so that it is a character that connects to people. And every time you drink water, Dr. Gembe, all the comments just go crazy. Somebody was attacking me for not drinking water. So, we'll see how it goes. I've got two more questions to go. And then, unfortunately, then I'll have to wrap it as well. But there's a question from Mangi, but I think you've already begun to respond to it as you talk about continuous learning, because Mangi was asking, how do you incorporate the feedback that you get from your audience, and what's your content creation process that allows that feedback loop to feed into what you then decide to curate as content. And I think you've already begun to answer a little bit, but maybe you can talk a little bit for us about how are you intentional about making sure that there's a process that forces you to engage with what your community is actually telling you works and doesn't work.
Okay, so I think a couple of years ago, we had a certain campaign about family planning, and we spoke about family planning, but unfortunately, there's a word on Twitter, it's called dragged. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're familiar with it,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So we got dragged through the pits of Twitter for raising awareness on family planning. And then I realized that the dragging wasn't necessarily the feedback, and I decided to listen beyond the noise. Because sometimes when people drag artists or creators, we tend to think that dragging my work is dragging my person. It's not true. Sometimes you have to distance yourself, mentally from, oh, this is a feedback on my work, but not on my person. And one thing I pride myself in is that I am always constantly learning. I am a student of life. And when we got dragged, I decided to really understand why exactly are we getting dragged. It cannot be because of family planning.
Sure.
I found out that it was the manner in which it was being said.
And not the message itself.
And not the message itself. Because from what I understood, it felt like we were being insensitive to the plight of women who were using the family planning. It was almost as if, oh, the side effects did not take a primary spot in that messaging. It was more, oh, just go get. How about the troubles we have? How about the side effects? How about the way, it can affect our bodies and our hormones and all that? And we learned from that. And so we ensured that that never happened again. And so what we did was that we kind of balanced the messaging without losing the creativity. Yeah. Because sometimes one person or a group of people may understand, because what I also tell people is, in order for you to take feedback, you need to first understand who your audience is. If you don't know who your audience is, you're going to make a lot of mistakes trying to fit into different audiences. And at the end of the day, there's no community. Yeah. The way Emeka and Nkechi is formed, I cannot reach everybody that way. However, I'm going to reach a huge portion of Nigerians simply because many of us still communicate in that manner. If I started talking like this, would I appeal to some people? Yes. But would I appeal to the Emekas and Nkechis? Probably not. Because one thing they know is that we're able to demystify and bring it down to a layman's comment. Yeah. However, if you don't understand who your audience is, you're going to make mistakes. So first of all, ask yourself, who am I reaching out to? Are they the elites? Are they the regular people? What kind of language do they speak? What are their mannerisms? When you do that, create content for them and listen to them. Yeah. Don't listen to others. Block out the noise.
Once you listen. Love what you said about distinguishing between what is an attack on your work versus an attack on the message. Yeah. And being able to take feedback beyond the noise and really hear what the feedback is. I think that must be a very difficult thing for many people whose work is often infused with the identity of who they are. And if the work is criticized, it automatically means that the criticism is of me. I've not had an experience of being dragged, and maybe it's because I play it safe and I'm not doing groundbreaking work like you, but I can imagine how tough that must be when the messaging that's coming from what seems as if is the world is just negative. But if you're really disciplined in listening deeply, you can really hear what the feedback is. And I think that's really inspiring, even for me as a global moderator. So thank you for that. One last question, then I'm going to let you go. The second one from Soga. Soga Prince is saying again, he says, Dr. Gembe, your storytelling skills are unmatched. Could you talk us through your approach around how do you actually build a compelling narrative, and how do you ensure that that's going to resonate while you are packaging valuable information? And I think that really gets to the essence of, I think what Prince is saying is, how do you create the magic that is you and the magic of what you are sharing with us? Because I think that question really encapsulates fully what we've been talking about all evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. But what I would say is be true, right? People find certain pieces of themselves in my story. And that's because my story is true. When I talk about Emeka and Nkechi, they can understand that I'm not faking it. And the reason they understand that is because I know what Emeka and Nkechi feels. I can sense what they sense. And that's also because I had a humble background growing up. Because what a lot of people do, what a lot of creators do, is that sometimes we tend to lose our authenticity, right? Of course, I loved books growing up. I loved to travel to other places in my imagination growing up. But I knew what growing up with thugs felt like. I knew what growing up, not knowing probably what the next meal would come from feels like. And so I still infuse that into my stories. And that's what people connect with. That's number one. Number two, in the early days of my making videos, I sounded completely different from of the stories that made me me. And so I would start a video with, hi guys, today we're going to be talking about hepatitis. And hepatitis is basically an inflammation of the liver. And I realized that I was trying to appeal to the global audience, but the global audience did not need my content at that point.
Right.
The people I was trying to educate were the African audience, the people who did not have direct access to a doctor, the people who did not have a doctor's number on speed dial, basically.
So how would that sound like now, Dr. Egemba, the hepatitis story? How would that sound today?
Oh, it's going to sound very different. First of all, Emeka and Nkechi, there's something happening in your liver that you don't know about. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So if that video were to be any different now, it would probably sound something like, Emeka, I hope you know that there's something very large in your abdomen called your liver. You like eating it in other animals, but your own, what have you done about it? And that's because that's how we communicate. It might sound a little bit sarcastic, because that's also how we communicate. We grew up in environments where if you ask your mom, where should I drop the cup? She will tell you, drop it on my head. She does not necessarily mean, exactly. She does not necessarily mean that you should keep it on her head. Automatically, you know where to keep that cup. And so we have that. It's a I love you without telling you I love you kind of vibe. It's just be careful. Just be careful. So, and that's why you have a lot of people say things like, I can't even open the fridge at night without having Aproko doctor in my ear. And that's because I sound like someone familiar to them. If I had sounded someone totally unfamiliar, it probably wouldn't have clicked. So how do you connect? Is be authentic. Don't try to be someone else. A lot of people even start videos and they try to be like Aproko doctor. You're not going to connect with your audience. Try to be yourself. There are loads and loads of people around the world who share similar experiences like you do, who have shared similar experiences like you do. And then the world of social media or the world of digital media is unhinged, is unrestricted. Almost anyone anywhere can find you. And because of that freedom, you're able to find people like you and create a community around that. So be
Yeah,
authentic.
I think it's a beautiful place to wrap up our conversation, and that is even as we tell stories that we don't leave our own stories outside
Exactly.
and to be your authentic self. I'm going to pause it there. I firstly want to say to all of our brothers and sisters who joined in from Nigeria, thank you very, very much. I was trying to follow some of the English, and I was losing some of it. But I appreciate you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for supporting Aproko Doctor, because through him you've also showed up for me today, and of course to everybody else who joined us from around the world. We really, really, really appreciate it. And to the power of storytelling, to the power of being our authentic selves, and to the power of listening to the feedback beyond the noise. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, my brother.
Thank
Have
you,
a
Nazi.
lovely, lovely, lovely evening.
Thank
Everybody
you.
take care and
Bye,
bye-bye.
guys. Emeka Nkechi. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.
Bye.